we spoke about the left winger situation last week. I mean, it's a situation that Arsenal do need to sort out, and there have been a few more sort of stories emerging in recent days. So the biggest one, I think, is talks being held with Leroy Sane of Bayern Munich, who of course could become a free agent at the end of the month. But we've seen this a couple of times with Bayern Munich players, the likes of Davies and Kimmich. Looks like they're going to be going somewhere else on a free transfer. Then they just do sign a new deal with Bayern Munich. I think there are talks ongoing with Sané's camp, but Christian Falk said yesterday that his chances of extending are looking a bit slimmer, actually.
Mm.
So this is one that, if this is an opportunity that Arsenal can pursue, do they need to really attack it in your eyes? Would you really like to see Sané playing for Arsenal? Maybe not starting on that left wing, but just an option on that left wing.
No, I don't like this one. I have to say it doesn't appeal to me. This one. I think Leroy Sane is a great footballer. He's done damage to Arsenal in the past for Man City. He did damage to Arsenal in the Champions League with Bayern Munich just a couple of years ago when he was very, very good, especially in the game at the Emirates. Um, but there's just a lot of red flags for me for this one. I don't like it. I've been really excited about what Arsenal are going to do winger wise going into this summer. I was really looking forward to seeing what they're going to do, and if they end up with Leroy Sane and a free, for me, I think that would be really disappointing from a club point of view. I just don't think that strengthens massively. He's a good player, as I said. He can play on the right, he can play on the left, but it would be massive wages, really, really big wages on a player coming, who's past his best. Let's face it, he's not going to be better than he's been before. And then, is he a massive improvement on Arsenal got? No, I don't think he is. So it's just not one that I'd be really blown away by. I'd much rather them go out and really sign a player that they believe is going to be the guy for the next few years. That's who I think they really should be targeting in this window. We've had a poor summer window last summer, attacking wise. They had a unacceptable window in January, really, attacking wise. So to have those sort of two windows, you really expect something big to happen this summer. I feel like Arsenal need that to really inject new blood into this attack. And if you end up by signing Leroy Sane, for me, I just think that's really underwhelming. And look, I can understand if there's talks going on, and I would imagine those talks are probably sort of initiated from Sane's camp as well, because that's what he has to do at this stage. He's out of contract potentially. You go out to the market, you put the feelers out, you see who's interested, you talk to Spurs, you talk to Arsenal, you do all that. So that's the right thing for them to do. But I would hope that's kind of where Arsenal are at it. I don't know how realistic it is at the moment or how hard they're actually pushing from their side as it's for this as an option. But I would hope it's a real sort of last gasp type option. I'd much rather them see they go out there and sign the Nico Williams you've been after for a while, who could come in and you could potentially be the guy for the next 5 years, or go out there and sign a Semenyo or an Eze or someone like that. I feel like that's far more exciting and far more what Arsenal need right now than a Leroy Sane, especially on the back of the season we've seen from Raheem Sterling. And I'm not saying Sane will be Sterling. I think he's got more to offer at this stage of his career than Sterling has, but still, you see what I mean in terms of why that would not be a move that I'd be very excited by.
Yeah, because it's not like Arsenal are going to be struggling financially this summer. They're in a really healthy place with that. And, for one of their big targets, like you say, to come on a free transfer when they've got this really healthy transfer kitty, that would be, a bit underwhelming, as you said. And
If they signed, they went out and still signed a Williams or a Semenyo or an Eze, but then got Sane as well as a free transfer, then fine. I'd be absolutely happy with that. It's just if he is the only winger signing, the only sort of wide addition that they look to strengthen the squad, that's where it'd be underwhelming. But yeah, by all means, if they go out and sign a striker, but they get two wingers and Sane's one of them, fine, do that. But I just don't think he should be the only winger. If that wouldn't make sense to me.
yeah, I'm afraid to our viewers, I think we're going to keep going down the negative path on this because it's also been claimed that Rodrygo wants to stay at Real Madrid, but he needs to prove himself at the Club World Cup for them to, decide that he is worthy of a place at the Bernabeu. And this Club World Cup could go on until mid-July, I think. So that's, a
Mm.
few weeks into the window. That could be quite a long time to wait to see if Real Madrid do decide that, he's not Galactico quality. Would that be too long for Arsenal to wait? Should they move on from this one if Rodrigo, isn't 100% set on leaving the club?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's got the ingredients to potentially run into a bit of a saga, doesn't it? That I think it runs on really, really late on in the window, and you don't really want that from an Arsenal point of view. But then there's also that sort of balancing act of, well, it is Rodrygo. If you're going to wait for anyone, potentially he could come in and be a bit of a game changer. That would be that exciting signing that would really freshen the attack up. So it's a tough balancing act on that one. I feel, yeah, I've said before, I'd love Rodrygo at Arsenal. If the opportunity's there, I think you have to at least enter the conversation to try and get that deal done. But if it's really looking like the signs are suggesting, it's either not going to happen or it will happen right at the end and it'll be a really late decision. I don't think you can afford to wait the whole window for him from an Arsenal point of view, because I think the need to strengthen in attack is just so great that you can't take the risk of ending up scrambling around at the end and signing a Raheem Sterling on the last day of the window because the player you've really waited for has ended up not arriving. So yeah, if the signals are, and they'll be doing the groundwork behind the scenes. If the signals they're getting that if this happens, it will happen right at the end of the window. I think they probably have to move on from that one.
Yeah, still a bit of uncertainty with that, but it doesn't look like there's much uncertainty with the future of Brentford's Brian Mbeumo. David Ornstein claiming last night that he has his heart set on joining Manchester United, which is maybe understandable. Obviously, they haven't got European football to offer, and Arsenal do, but he, functions best on that right-hand side, which is Saka's spot, hands down at Arsenal. We could maybe expect more minutes at Man United. So he's a phenomenal player, of course, over 20 goals last season, but given that Arsenal can't guarantee him those starts that Man U maybe can, is it much of a surprise that he's going in that direction?
No, not. It's a tough sell. I'm more surprised he's not going to Newcastle. I really thought he'd end up there. I thought he would be perfect for them. I think he'd be an improvement on Jacob Murphy on that right hand side, who had a really good season, by the way. But I think in Mbeumo it improves them. It just felt like that was where he was going to end up to me. I'm surprised he's ended up at United. It was again kind of like Juan Garcia. It's an almost impossible sell if you're talking to Mbeumo saying come to Arsenal. All right, who plays on your right? Saka. Well, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go there, am I? So again, I don't know how strong the interest was from Arsenal, but when I look at it, again, I don't see this being a window where Arsenal sign two wingers. I see it being a window when you sign one, and for me, it has to be a left winger rather than a right winger. I'd love to bring in another right hand side player to share the minutes with Bukayo Saka, but I'm not sure realistically that's going to happen in a window when you're also signing a striker. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that it's not Arsenal that he's going to, but was a little bit surprised he picked Manchester United. I have to say, good deal for them. Following on from Matthias Cunha, that's two good deals for them. It certainly improves their attack. But I was a bit surprised he's gone there. I imagine the money on offer is pretty decent for him to make that choice.